Hello, hello. Welcome to the Enquiry podcast. This is a show that helps you to influence your reality to the greatest capacity in order to be able to use your life as the medicine that it is, to be able to know how to read the signposts and follow the breadcrumbs in order to express the fullness of who you are and what you're actually here for. I'm your host, Nerida Mills. I am a master psychosomatic practitioner, coach and facilitator, and it is my absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome on board and let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Enquiry podcast. Today I really want to get into breadcrumbs. We spoke a little bit about the signposts and breadcrumbs that life provides for you a couple of episodes back, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what are breadcrumbs. We spent a lot of time talking about signposts, and just to recap, signposts are really those indicators that draw your awareness to an area of your life that needs your attention. Breadcrumbs are a little bit different. So breadcrumbs to me really speak to the parts of yourself that is trying to bring more specificity to something. So if we're looking at, for example, I love language is a beautiful breadcrumb. So the language that we use when we are talking about an area of issue, so signpost has highlighted an area of issue. Now I'm talking about said area of issue. And within my communication around that lies the breadcrumbs that will help guide me back to the point of healing. So we want to use them in partnership. So when I say language, what I mean by that is the descriptive terms, the labels that we use are all breadcrumbs. So for example, if I'm having a conversation and I'm telling somebody about somebody else who has hurt my feelings in some capacity, and I'm saying, if they're just so lazy and it really pisses me off when they don't do what they say they're going to do, and, they always expect everybody else to do everything, but, that's not what I'm here for, and blah, blah, blah. And I might be going on a bit of a rant because, we all like to have a little bit of a rant every now and then. And, it's part of, for me personally, it's part of how I actually process what is going on for me. I'm a verbal processor. I need to audibly hear myself in my insanity in order to recognize the insanity. If it just stays in my head, then I can be convinced by my mind that the insanity is true, which it's not. But by speaking it out loud, what I find is more clarity around those breadcrumbs that I'm actually listening for. So in the example I've just given you, what happens is that when I reflect back from that conversation, what are the words that really stood out for me as far as labels are concerned or as far as points of issue? So one of them was lazy. One of them was, never does what they say they're going to do. And expectation would be another one. So the beautiful point about the breadcrumb is it's a very clear pathway into reflection. So then the question becomes, where am I being lazy? Where am I not following through my words? And where am I holding expectation around other people to do so when I'm not willing to? So that then gives me some clues as to where to start looking in my life for the areas of influence. If I'm just getting pissed off about somebody else's behavior, there are certain points of influence around that. For example, obviously speaking into how I'm feeling and the implications that that's having on other people. But my greatest point of influence is really looking at my own behavior and where I can upgrade, up-level, or mature how I am showing up into different areas of my life. So once I've then gained clarity around, actually, I have been a bit lazy and I'm not really following through with, my health, or I'm not really following through at work the way that I know that I could, or whatever it is that you kind of reflect back into. Maybe you're not following through on some agreements that you had with a loved one, or, this can play out in all areas, essentially. So once you've done that, then you have that point of influence, which is, okay, what do I need to do, or how do I need to mature in order to change that behavior? So that we can start looking at the strategies and kind of unpicking from there and then shifting the behavior as we move forward. So that's one of the ways that I use breadcrumbs, and it's probably a really easy, regular one because language is very apparent. What it takes from us is a willingness to reflect back into some of the behaviors that we don't want to identify as. So often when we're pointing the finger at somebody else and we're saying they're being this or they're being that, or maybe it's not a somebody, maybe it's an entity of, like an organization or a government or, whatever. When we're pointing the finger, it's generally because we can't imagine ourselves doing something like that. I would never is often associated in that conversation. I would never do that. I would never show up to people like that. I would never speak to people like that. I would never expect other people to do that. I would never, right? With this level of righteousness, which is completely unfounded, because I can guarantee you absolutely would. You would just do it in your own form. So it might not be showing up in the same way as them. So for example, maybe I'm complaining about somebody else being lazy at work, but I'm being lazy in my own business. Or maybe I'm complaining about someone being lazy in their health, but I'm being lazy in my relationship. But the trait is the thing that we can cross-pollinate and actually use for our own growth. So that's what we're looking for. The other area of breadcrumbs that I really love to use is curiosities. So curiosities are, I believe, the breadcrumbs of the soul to guide us into what we're actually here for. So it's nearly like your higher self, call it what you want. I don't really care. Higher self, your God, your whatever, has left these little breadcrumbs for you to follow through your life. And the way that you've hit a breadcrumb is a deep level of curiosity or excitement around exploring what that actually is. So where this is really helpful to know is, a lot of people are stuck in this conversation around, I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I hear that a lot. So the challenge is that sometimes you haven't yet found all the breadcrumbs. Maybe you've been following the breadcrumbs, maybe you've been ignoring the breadcrumbs, but the breadcrumbs are there. So how this played out in my life is that, obviously I traveled for a bit when I was a kid, and then when I came back, I started getting really curious about natural health. The reason I got curious around natural health is because there was a signpost in my life, aka my hair falling out when I was 19, that said you might want to pay attention to this. And so I started getting really curious around natural health, and I started going down that path. And my curiosity for natural health led me down the curiosity path, which kind of forked out, I suppose. So part of my curiosity stayed with natural medicine, and part of my curiosity went into, the building blocks of matter. Like I wanted to understand how you actually influence matter on a physical scale from an energetic standpoint. And so, those two curiosities kind of lit up. But at that time, I didn't marry them together. It didn't make any sense for me to marry them together. It didn't make any sense why I was interested in either outside of my own personal healing journey. I've also had a breadcrumb in the sense of massage. So when I was 16, I studied just basic relaxation massage with my sister. And I remember thinking at the time, I'd love to be able to do this, but I wouldn't want to do it all day, every day. But I love getting into people's bodies. Didn't know where that was going to go, and kind of just let it fall to the side after I had explored it to the fullness of the desire at the time. Fast forward a little bit, and I started getting curious around other things. I started wanting to understand energy healing. I started wanting to understand how behavior worked. And again, how I got curious around those things were often indicated through signposts that then led me down a more specific route to follow the breadcrumbs of that curiosity or that passion that was then birthed as a result of however my awareness was brought there. So, my desire around human behavior was really stemmed from when we had the property, and the dynamics of the property meant that we didn't continue to live there. And so I wanted to understand what went wrong there and how you could influence human behavior and human dynamics. How do we actually unpick that hierarchy that seems to unconsciously form for people, and how do we influence through communication to be able to create peaceful resolutions or agreed upon resolutions at a bare minimum. So, that was really kind of the passion there. And, I could go on and on and on. I've had so many different passions that have seemingly not really made a lot of sense at the time. But when the time is right, what happens is they kind of all sink in together. It's like pieces of the puzzle come together, and then you can see it. It's like, oh my God, I actually needed that. Having that massage background was really helpful when I started doing psychosomatic body work, because I already had a little bit of an understanding around how to do that. So my confidence was a little bit greater than somebody who had never put hands on a body before. My natural medicine understanding has really come in handy a lot with my own healing journey as it continues to evolve, but also, my ability to provide that for my children, and also, a lot of conversations that I have around, areas of growth with my clients include some form of natural medicine support to what's going on. For example, if somebody's nervous system is overactivated, we've got a couple of different points of influence there. You have we can calm the vagus nerves through vagus nerve reset processes. We can also, help the nervous system calm down through, different herbal supports, or, be that, literally just moving from coffee to tea, or, chamomile tea, looking at different essential oils, et cetera, right? So you can also do that, plus, add some different elements around breath work and whatever. And then you actually have a holistic pathway to be able to collectively calm the system down. And that really is, from my experience, the most efficient way through. If we can actually get all of the components that's creating imbalance in a person's body or mind or life, and we can look at all of the pieces of that, and then to be able to support them all simultaneously, you have a very efficient pathway. And so even though all of the breadcrumbs in my life didn't make sense at the time, now, very, very useful. Obviously, that's my life. It's not your life. You will have your own version of breadcrumbs as far as your passions and curiosities are concerned that are the guide to what you're actually here for. It is enough for you to take action on. Then we have a pathway to passion. So breadcrumbs, much like signposts, aren't necessarily fundamentally challenging or beneficial or easeful. They can be either or. But breadcrumbs, in my experience, tend to be a little bit more subtle. Signposts tend to smack you in the face somewhat. So, that's one of the ways in which I kind of use breadcrumbs to find the truth. Language is a really big one if you're trying to unpick what is the actual issue of something that's going on, because we do have that, the labeling that we use. But we also, if we start bringing in some conscious questioning to following that breadcrumb, we can get to a root cause quite quickly. So, for example, the conversation I was having before that I was telling you about, around the laziness, if you just tack on a really simple question at the end of that, what am I afraid of? Then we have to answer that, right? And so if I answer that, what am I afraid of? Honestly, then what I might find is that, I'm afraid that it's all going to be, everything's going to be left to me again, like I don't have any support. I'm sick of feeling alone, whatever it is. Now we're getting really close to something that is actually real for you, rather than the surface level issue. So you can follow the breadcrumbs from a surface level issue down, fundamentally, and use each step of that journey to heal and grow as an individual, to the point where once you've got your fear, well, okay, so maybe I don't want to feel like it's all on my shoulders. Well, where have I felt that before? Well, I felt that here and I felt that here. And actually, you know what? I felt that when I was a kid. My mum used to make me feel like that, right? Now, my mum didn't make me feel like that. I'm just using an example, but, that will be true on some level for people. So you want to follow these breadcrumbs back, because then at that point, it's like, okay, now if we're talking about point of influence, well, holy moly, if we can go to the root source of where a pattern started, where a fundamental fear kind of got its talons in, or its hooks into your psyche, and you can heal that place, well, the implications from that are far-reaching. So that's me today. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll speak to you soon. So that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I would like to really acknowledge you for spending the time to explore what creates your reality and how you can influence it best. If you have absolutely loved this episode and the ones before it, then I highly encourage that you jump onto my newsletter list. You'll be able to find the details of that in the show notes. You can also follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Nerida Mills. Really, really, really looking forward to speaking with you again soon. If you have any comments, insights, feedback, anything that you would like to share from these episodes, please feel free to email me at info@neridamills.com. Until next time.